July the 4th, 1776. The Second Continental Congress unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence, announcing the colony's separation from Great Britain. And while history was being made within the walls of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, right behind this building, the histories of another group of people were being buried right under the soil. In this video, we will uncover some of that history that must be remembered and never forgotten. Our story begins here, the Delaware River. In 1684, a ship named the Isabella anchored in Philadelphia's port with approximately 150 captured Africans, which is considered the first shipment of enslaved Africans to arrive in the city after Penn's arrival. Between 1718 and 1804, at least 10 vessels that participated in the transatlantic slave trade docked in Pennsylvania ports carrying an estimated 1,000 enslaved Africans, according to the online database Slave Voyages. Another 103 vessels carried more than 1,400 enslaved Africans from South America, the Caribbean, and other American colonies to Pennsylvania between 1709 and 1776, according to the database. It is estimated that upwards to 5,000 Africans were sold as slaves in the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. From there, they were dispersed throughout the region as house servants and field hands. While shoddy record keeping may have made it difficult for historians to track down the place of origin for these African slaves, there is a place, which we will talk about later, that provides us with some strong clues. I am here at this location. It's called Cooper Point, and Cooper Point Park to be precise. They just recently converted this and made this into a very beautiful park. And it is this bridge that you see behind me, this is the Ben Franklin Bridge. And as a child growing up in South Jersey and in Philadelphia as well, I remember just crossing this bridge all the time. And this is one of my favorite bridges. But one thing I did not know was the history that was literally right under the bridge. And, thankfully, the state of New Jersey decided to start putting markers in place, these historical markers, so that people would remember the history that took place in these locations. Well, where I'm standing right now is a place where Africans were disembarked to be sold as slaves, right here in this spot in South Jersey, in Camden, New Jersey. And they would either go further into New Jersey, into South Jersey, or they would go right over across the river, that's the Delaware River behind me, into Philadelphia, where they also worked there as well. It's interesting because a lot of times when we talk about, the transatlantic slave trade, we typically keep in mind, in our minds, it's usually the South. But what a lot of people don't realize is that slaves were brought all the way up as far as here and even further, and worked as slaves. And so, again, they would go into Philadelphia, but they would also go into South Jersey to work as gardeners or to work as farmers, because you have a lot of people are familiar with North Jersey, that's near the New York area, of course. Then you got Central Jersey, that's Trenton. And then you have South Jersey, and that's kind of where I am right now. But this part of South Jersey is a lot closer to the city, so it's a lot more commercialized, industrialized. But there's another part of South Jersey that's still very, very rural. When you drive through it, it does feel a lot like I'm down south somewhere. Well, a lot of those farms have been there for centuries, and those farms and that agriculture that's there even to this day, it was Africans that were brought as slaves that helped lay the foundation of that. So slaves that were brought here and were sold here, Africans that were brought here and were sold here as slaves, were brought into those areas to help develop the agricultural industry here in the South Jersey area. So the next time when you hear people refer to New Jersey as the Garden State, you'll see that on every New Jersey tag, that it's the Garden State. Remember, it was Africans that helped make that possible. We were brought here to be gardeners in the Garden State. Individuals who brought slaves in New Jersey needed a way to get their goods across the river. Enter the Cooper family. The Coopers were Quakers who, besides owning the land that would later be known as Camden, one of their main ventures was a ferry company that transported goods between Philadelphia and New Jersey. These goods included human cargo, African slaves. At least 800 slaves were forcibly brought across the Delaware River from Philadelphia to New Jersey in the 18th century via 3 ferries owned by the slave-owning Cooper family, among the city's founders. The ferries greatly shaped the region, with businesses and homes emerging around the terminals. Later on, activity on the Delaware River attracted industries such as the Campbell Soup Company and the New York Shipyard. Today, the Cooper name is still very prevalent throughout the Camden area, from Cooper Street to Cooper Medical Center, Cooper River, Cooper Point School, Cooper Point Park, and what you see here, the Cooper Free Library. Sadly, the same people that constantly tell us that slavery was a very long time ago will construct an entire community around reminders of the people who literally owned you as slaves. What is even sadder is that here we have the descendants of African slaves depending on the descendants of the Cooper family for medical care and education. Okay, so what you have behind me now, we are standing right now right on the site of yet another slave market where they sold Africans as slaves. What you don't see is going this direction. You're going to be right at the Delaware River. This particular location, what I'm suspecting, and I haven't been able to find a whole lot of information to confirm this or not, but I believe this is the case, is that the first market that I showed you, that was for the location. That location was used for Africans that were sold as slaves that went into the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia market. And then this location here would have probably been used for the selling of Africans as slaves into the South Jersey marketplace. And so just like we got Wawa's all over the place or Starbucks all over the place, well, they had branches of slave markets where they sold Africans as slaves. Before heading over to Philadelphia, I want to read to you an excerpt from a resource that I found entitled Afro-Americans in New Jersey, A Short History by Giles R. Wright. This was a report that was put together by the New Jersey Historical Commission, the Department of State, some years ago. And if you go to page 22, it says this: those slaves that did come to the colony fresh from Africa probably contributed to the retention of African culture in New Jersey during the slave era. Certainly an African style marked the way some danced, sang, played instruments, and paraded. Well into the early 1800s, New Jersey slaves did the shingle dance in holiday festivities at the Catherine Market in New York City. The rhythms of this dance were said to resemble those of the ring shout, an African-influenced circle dance style seen in Southern black churches as late as the mid-20th century. Those of you who are familiar with our platform know that we have done at least several videos on the ring shout and its origins. The ring shout is a dance that originated out of Central Africa and is based on the counterclockwise movement of the Congo cosmogram. Independence Hall isn't the only landmark of importance here in Philadelphia. You can't create a nation without a bank. So here you will find the nation's first and second bank. So what a lot of people aren't aware of, as you can see, Independence Hall is behind me, but right in front of me as I'm walking, there's a park here. And the name of this park, if you go on Google Maps, it will say, or any other map, it will call it Washington Square, Washington Park. But that was not the original name of it. It was actually called something else. It was called Congo Square. Prior to this location becoming a city park, it was known as a potter's field, a place where the poor and sick were buried. With limited options of places where these sons and daughters of African slaves could publicly gather, they decided to make this place a place where they could gather to sing, dance, cook, catch up on the latest news, and yes, bury their own. But even in death, they had to protect the remains of their loved ones from medical scientists like Dr. William Shippen and his anatomy lectures right up the street at the Philadelphia College of Medicine. It was in 1825 where this space was converted to a park and renamed Washington Square in honor of this nation's first president. And while you'll find many markers honoring Washington, the markers of the thousands of soldiers, poor, sick, and descendants of African slaves are minimized. Here, I was able to locate a marker that mentions the history of Congo Square. Only free and enslaved African Americans brought a message of myrrh to this square when, according to oral tradition, they called Congo Square. One 19th century historian recorded that during fairs and holidays, perhaps as many as 1,000 black Philadelphians came here to dance after the manner of their several nations in Africa, speaking and singing in their native dialects over the sleeping dust below. He also wrote of those from Guinea, a term once used to encompass several African areas, going to the graves of their friends early in the morning and there leaving them victuals and rum. It is a very surreal feeling you get as you walk through this park. Just underneath the many who come to this park to picnic, exercise, rest, allow their dogs to potty, there are the stories of many. We must do what we can to make sure they are never forgotten.